You start laughing, you're going to get me laughing. I don't even know what we're laughing at, but this is Leadership Uncertain. And today, Hugh, uh, I thought it would be fun for us to talk about pain.
Pain.
And
Oh
there's a
my
lot of
gosh.
different kinds of pain. There's physical pain, there's emotional pain, there's just fear itself. I find painful. Anger is painful. There are so many avenues that we humans have to pain. Um, I think it was Wesley, good friend Wesley, who said, "Life is pain, Highness." If you recognize that quote from The Princess Bride. Um, And so, not just I don't want to just talk about pain because that gets boring. I want to talk about leading through pain joyfully.
So, it's amazing you ask these questions probably just when I need to answer them, right?
Mm.
Because there's a really good book, and I'm not going to try to swear, so we're going to do our best to go as closely as we can without doing it. There's a fella, I think his name's Mark Manson,
Okay,
and he writes the book, um, The Art.
of
Is it
not
the
giving an
Art?
F.
I'm not giving an F. Yes, that's right. That's the
Yeah.
name of the book.
I
I
know of that book, though I have
yes,
not read it.
I started reading it about a week and a half ago. I'm like on chapter 6 of, I don't know, 15 or 16. And one of the things he says in his book that is cathartic and challenging
Mm.
is he says, happiness, I'm going to paraphrase badly. Happiness is trite in what we usually express, in that we
Mm.
all want these generic
Mm.
forms of happiness and we expect them in our lives. A really gut busting question is, to achieve such happiness, said happiness, what sacrifice and pain are you willing to tolerate in your life?
Come on.
Did, so, of course, this is why you have to ask me this today. This is what I come prepared to talk about. And it was a challenging question.
Yeah.
What pain are you willing to sustain in your life such that you achieve the happiness of your conjectures, of your
It's so
dreams?
interesting. What an interesting question, and I reject it.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily reject it permanently.
Sure.
Like I immediately just kind of reject it because I ask myself, because I do endure a lot of pain, in some ways voluntarily,
Hmm.
and I don't think I do it on behalf of happiness.
Okay, so let's remember I summarized like
Yeah,
4.5 chapters in like a
yeah.
sentence.
I get a lot more specific. You
So
know,
let's drill into that because I think it's
yeah.
worth it. So I think about my fitness.
Mm. Yeah, you
Now,
endure a lot of pain on behalf of, at least on behalf of some things that look like fitness.
okay, all right, I take the jab.
That's not.
Um,
I don't mean that as a jab. I mean it as like when I read. When you send me texts about doing, I can't even remember what they're called. It's not just burpees. It's like way worse than burpees. It's Murphys. Is that it? Is that right? Do you do a
no,
Murphy? A
no.
Murph.
So the Murph is the name of the workout.
Yes.
Yes,
So you talk about doing the Murph,
right.
and and of course I'm not in your head. I don't know. Like, it doesn't occur for me that you do the Murph in order to be fit. Although I wonder, right?
Hmm.
Like, I know a lot of people whom I think of as being very fit, and they don't do anything that would be as painful as a Murph.
So
And
here's
maybe you should tell people briefly what a Murph is, so
this.
that we're not just talking about random things.
Yeah, so for those who are curious about what we're talking about, the name of the workout is Murph, and it is normally a Memorial Day tradition where 3 million CrossFitters around the world will run a mile, do 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and run another mile for time. And it's one of those workouts where like you do it, you get it done. A bad Murph time is like an hour and a half. Like a decent Murph time is like 50 minutes. A world class Murph time is like 39 minutes,
Wow.
35,
Yeah.
39 minutes. And so effectively what it is, it's just suffering. It's suffer until it's not. And one of the beautiful things about Murph is that it is more about your ability to do the next rep,
Yeah.
because
Right.
most people can't imagine doing 10 pull-ups, much less doing 100 pull-ups. And if you go to certain gyms, you have to do them in a row before you move on to the push-ups.
Mm,
Whereas there would be some gyms that let you
mm.
stack. So you can do 10, 20, 30, 10, 20, 30, and just do that 10 times. In any case, however you choose to chop it up, it is still an absolute crushing mental exercise, because you have to literally convince yourself that and your hands start to bleed, your fingers start to cramp, like your
Sounds
legs
great.
start to cramp. It's
I'm
just
doing it
awful.
tomorrow.
But the amazing thing is you do it with friends, right? So the people around you are all dying. The floor is completely drenched in sweat. You have to keep getting chalk to go chalk your hands up because the bars get sweaty for all the pull-ups that are happening. And people are out there supporting each other in a cause that is much bigger than their own.
Mm,
So
mm, mm.
it is a communal expression of what's possible when you push yourself. But I wasn't even
Mhm.
going to talk about Murph. Where I was going to tell you was, so I don't know if you know that I'm a semi-competitive powerlifter. I used to be
Yeah.
more competitive
I've
in my
I've
younger
seen
days,
some of your powerlifting.
and you know, at the height, just last year, I competed in a local competition, and in my state, the record for my weight class and my age is 2 pounds heavier than I lifted that day. So I have a deadlift that is well over 620 pounds. And when I lift slowly, everything hurts.
I bet it does.
But what's strange is that in order, and a lot of people come up to me and they say, I wish I were as strong as you. I wish I were half as strong as you. I wish I had 25% the strength because I can do a strict press with almost 240 pounds on my chest. What they don't know is it took 7 years of being at the gym consistently, lifting stuff that hurt, whether I was sick or I was well, or if I was well hydrated, if I felt good, if I didn't feel good, it didn't matter. Weight had to go up. And
Mm.
so the question is, are you willing to? And pain uh, a synonym for sacrifice and suffering as
Mm.
well. So it's not just acute physical discomfort; it is
Right.
sustained inconvenience. It is foregoing pleasure. It is the ability to grit down and do hard, boring, mindless, mundane things in support of, and do them joyfully in support of a goal that, if you achieve it and you tie your identity to it, might not be worth anything. So I am one of the strongest people in the zip code. Who cares, right? That's the kind of recognition that you don't get when you go after your dreams and they don't matter to anyone but yourself. So the understanding though is recognizing that all of that work is in support of something to keep you potentially happy and focused.
Yeah.
And the point, however, is that you have mastered something in your life that you can translate to other domains, which brings us to the conversation about pain and leadership.
Yeah. So speaking of pain and leadership and leading through pain joyfully, One of the things that's just come up as you were sharing what you shared is, I think, I was about to say one of the reasons. I don't think it's one of the reasons. I actually think it is the reason, if not the primary reason, if not the reason, I am not still a theater director
Hmm.
for a profession, is that I didn't have to be that.
Didn't have to be that.
Yeah, there's like a way I didn't have to be, I didn't have to do it. Internally, I did not find in myself that I have to do this.
Okay.
Where, now I've got this company. I'm training teams to communicate and collaborate effectively. I am in a way that I was not even when I was doing theater, which I loved in some ways more,
Mm-hmm. Sure.
not doing my life's work. And so there is a way in which I felt I had to do this. I still feel I have to do this. I don't have any other choice that would leave me feeling whole.
So I am very curious about your language because when I hear you say it that way, I don't hear I have to do this.
Right.
I hear I get to do this with compulsion.
Yes. And that's about right. That's about right. Because even as I say I have to do this, even that's not quite
right. Yes.
It's for that, as much as this hurts, and it hurts,
Yes.
not doing this would hurt more.
Well, so this is a good point. So I am going to say that it's lovely if you can feel that way about the thing you're doing. It's useful if you can bring yourself to feel that way about anything you wish to do. This just happened. I'm talking about like an hour and 20 minutes ago. I got on the line on a sales call, and the customer, the prospect, said to me, I want, and they said a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And I listened, and the first thing I said to them was, I have goosebumps. Because I have been working for the last decade to create the thing that you just described.
All that stuff.
And we offer it now.
Yeah.
And it was, the work I do, most people are afraid to do it. And there are a lot of parallels between the work that we do and my lifting and the crazy stuff that I do in my personal life. And so for them to come and say, we want this, and this, and we know that there's nobody else in the ecosystem crazy enough to do that, this, and this, right? And it has been our passion. We have gotten our butts kicked so hard, so many times, to get to the place where now we can deliver this thing in excellence. So that way, when they ask a question, there's not a detail that we don't know about the process because we have failed every way to get to the process. That too is pain. The failure is shame. The failure is time lost. The failure is money lost. The failure is just simply recognizing that you just didn't know what the hell you were doing. It's pure ignorance.
Yeah.
And come out the other side. And now you have a solution set that I have a strategy, I have an execution, I have a team. I know everybody is bloodied with their noses. So we know exactly what we're not going to do to keep you stable. And the thing they asked for was exactly what we were told 5 years ago nobody ever would ever need. And now it's a non-negotiable for them to need this scope, and we're the only company that's primed to deliver it. Why am I saying all of this? Because their request was the culmination of my life's work. The thing that they're asking me to do was the Picasso that I have been training to paint for our last decade. And I have been preparing for somebody to ask me for this scope. And it felt like providence. But it
Mm.
took 10 years to be ready to have that conversation and not hem and haw. And just look them straight in the eye and say, yep, we got it. This is what we do. And I think that's the fruit of pain. The fruit of pain, if you can sustain it and you're intelligent about making sure you're investing in it the right way, the right sacrifices, the right discipline, the right
Mm.
frustrations to get you to a place where you are competent, you are ready, you are not naive, and you are not superficially positive, because nobody needs that. We
Mm.
need you to be real. We need you to be ready with contingencies. We need you to be able to come through when things go right and when things go wrong. And when they go wrong, you need to keep your head, because you know the sky is not going to fall. And you're not going to be overly optimistic. You're just going to be confident that you can get through to the next plan. And when that fails, you're ready too. And that's it. That you recognize. And then there's no expectation that things are going to go great, because every success begets the next failure. So you're just ready for that crap too, right? I don't know. That to me is everything describing the necessity of pain
Yeah.
in forging a character worth having.
Right. So there is enduring pain with the promise, or maybe not promise. We talked about this enough on this show. There is no promise. So you say the experience that you just had of having constructed and being ready to offer the Picasso that you've suffered for years to create,
Yes.
and the fruit of the pain of coming through what you had to come through to create it, is that now there is a prospect who needs exactly this Picasso that you've created.
Yes.
And that's all that's all well and good. And believe me, my heart it sings for you. And given that there was no promise
Hmm.
as you were going through that suffering that this Picasso lover would ever show up, if I'm right about you, and I think I am, there was also joy for you even during the struggle,
Absolutely.
without knowing for sure
And
that the Picasso lover would ever show up. And that's
absolutely.
what I'm most interested in, is how do we
Absolutely.
have the joy even while we're going through the struggle? How do we have the joy even while we endure it? And for me, part of the answer is to recognize for myself the pain that I would have making a decision that, what's the expression, and I don't remember where it comes from. What would you do if you knew you could not fail?
Mm.
That
Mm.
there is greater pain for me in the places that I've had pain in choosing the safer route, if I pay
Mm.
attention. And so there is joy for me in having chosen this pain. This is my pain that I have chosen, because if I really key into who I am and what fulfills me, then there is more pain in going the other direction, that is at the same time as being more painful, somehow also more comfortable.
Okay. So you will love this book because he makes exactly that point.
Hmm.
I won't ruin it for you, but you will enjoy that.
Yeah.
And he goes further. He goes further to say, um, on the idea of suffering, choose your problems.
Mm.
Choose your
Yes.
problems wisely, because you're gonna have them. So just choose the best problems you're gonna have,
Yeah.
because it's not about happy. And I'll answer my version of what you just said in a second, but let's just focus in on where you were. His whole point has been, choose your suffering, because you're going to have problems no matter what you choose. It's just how life shows up. And his premise is that joy shows up in the resolution process of the problem solving. The problem
Mm.
solving is where the joy kicks in.
For
I will
sure it
tell,
does.
well, I'll tell you that for me, pain is the salt, but not the meat.
Mm.
It's the flavoring. It's not. I don't do things because I am avoiding or trying to avoid less pain.
Mm.
I do things because I have a vision. So for me personally,
Mm-hmm.
I imagined. So I attempted 655 last year at this competition.
I don't know what. Oh, 655 pounds.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I pulled it, but my hand slipped because my grip was a little too wide. And so what happens is with that much weight, just an inch and a half off center can actually throw your shoulders out. And in my case, I lost my grip and one side of the weight fell and the other side stayed in my hand and
Mm.
that fell apart. I didn't get injured. It was fine. But it was clear that I had 655, which meant could I
Mm.
have pushed 675? Because that was the weight that I had originally told the judges I wanted, and they got scared and didn't want to put it on the bar.
Mm.
So we settled at 655. I attempted it. I failed, but they don't know that I had 655. If I had just pulled my hand in an inch and a half, that would have gone up and that would have been my new PR.
Mm.
So the thing I manage is I have this fleeting image of myself lifting 655, 675, doing 700 someday. Could I do it? Yes. On my front squat, I have this image of me lifting 425 across my chest and going down and standing back up. I don't have a back squat goal anymore because I'm kind of done with that. That broke my hip once, so
Mm.
I'm okay. But the other lifts are interesting to me, and so I keep showing up and playing with the weight, with the idea that someday I may actually push these numbers again. Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but it keeps me intrigued.
Mm.
There are other things I have vision for. My dance, I have a vision for my dance. For my migration work, for years, I would imagine the perfect migration. And so every migration we did on the way to that scope, we kept refining our process so that way we would think through not just how hard the capabilities were to be able to pull it off, but also speed, the ability for the systems to work together, the admin systems that had to work. So there's this in my mind's eye, this amazingly delivered, well oiled, well choreographed play that culminates in our delivery of this perfectly delivered experience, because what most people think of as migration is just this movement of data to its target. That's probably 20% of the work.
And so for the listener or viewer who doesn't know what migration you're talking about, real quick, what's the migration?
Sure. So this is where we move people's data and settings from legacy systems like QuickBooks and Sage 50 and Xero and NetSuite and other legacy systems to a in accounting ERP like Sage Intact. So we effectively move data and settings from old systems to new systems at a level of different scopes.
And if you've ever moved data from one system to another, you know what torture that can be. My CRM is now HubSpot. It's been HubSpot for 5 years or so, and there's still like total BS from our migration from whatever we were on before. 5 years later, it's just like, where did this crap come from?
Exactly. So part of our mission, and 80% of the migration is actually the customer experience,
Mm.
keeping them confident throughout the whole thing. So it's not just delivering a near perfect solution at the end of the day. It's keeping the customer's confidence and faith and trust in the process the whole time, which is probably actually the hardest part of this. It's not even the work, it's just managing their expectations, their confidence, how they show up to the world, whether or not they trust what they're on, how they feel about their own performance as we're going through the exercise.
And so, given there's something in that I think can bring us back to the
Okay.
topic at hand. What is it about the experience that you deliver to the client
Hmm.
that is a painful experience, if for no other reason that they have anxiety about it?
Sure. So
What is
a
it
lot.
about what you're doing for them
Mhm.
that we as leaders can carry into our own painful experiences? How can we provide ourselves with the kind of experience that you're describing delivering for them?
There are three components um, to creating a non-commoditized, world-class customer service experience, and they actually come from a fellow named Dan Sullivan. It's the LRC model. It stands for leadership, relationship, and creativity. Let's go through them. So, leadership, more simply defined, is being a light in the darkness. Because when people come to us, they are fearful that they are not going to have access to what they used to have access to. They're fearful that they're going into the unknown to use a system that they don't know how to use, and they've been on something and practiced on something for the last 10 years, and it's going to be completely foreign. And they are concerned that they if they had success before, they're not going to have success anymore because they don't know what they're doing it they don't know what they're doing anymore, and they don't know the system with which in which they're now doing this new activity, this old activity, but with new context. And a lot of times they fear their for their own success, and if they're an employee, they fear that they if they don't show competence fast enough, they may be replaced. So these are all fears that they come into the conversation with, and they may be resistant to change. And of course, for added flavor, they may have not been the one to make this choice. So the choice has been thrust upon them, and now the person we're dealing with is simply reacting to the ether.
Mhm.
So our job is to coach them that things are going to be all right. We're going to have problems, but we will together have the patience, the tolerance, the compassion, and the empathy to work things through and figure things out. And because we have done this so many times, you're going to be okay too. That's the message. So that's leadership. Relationship is you are not alone, and though you may be distinct, you are not different. And that's very important.
Mhm.
It's very important for you to thread the needle with having your customer feel like they are heard and distinct, but they are not so different that you're figuring out their problems for the first time and they are alone. You want them to be unique, but you don't want them to be alone.
Mhm.
So the companionship of knowing, okay, I've got someone in my court that I can trust and that I can talk to, and that is kind and pleasant and engaging, allows my humanity to have a couple more touch points. One of the things I realize I get better at is not just focusing in on the technical work, because I find that I'm very good at the technical work, but I don't always remember to hold a person close as we're
Mhm.
doing this.
Yeah.
Because there's a human being on the other side of this that isn't just an expression of the work. They have dreams, they have focus, they have patience, they have a lot of things going for them that help them interact with the process better, and that connection is critical for them to be able to move through. And then
Mhm.
the final part is creativity. So any service provider is trying to take your customer to find a way to reinvent themselves through your service offering or your solution. And so part of what we have as a responsibility as service providers is to create a space, an exercise for our customers to reimagine how they can be in the world of their dreams or wants with your help, using your platform. When you do all three well, you don't only and of course you got to do the necessary work, like you have to be competent, but just serving the hamburger is not good enough. serving the hamburger and making sure that they see that there's an experience that has happened, they don't feel alone, and they get to reinvent how they see themselves and what's possible for them along the way, takes it from being a standard experience to one in which they can't stop referring you to their friends, their colleagues, and their family.
Right. So and so if I take this back to leading through pain
Mhm.
joyfully, I can imagine, if I don't have to imagine, I've done it, I've experienced it myself. When a leader can provide themselves with this kind of customer service, provide yourself with this experience, then it is possible, in my experience, to feel the pain and feel the joy at the same time, and not have the joy be diminished by the pain of it. And so let's go through these things one at a time. So the leadership aspect and having a light in the darkness. One of the things that has been a light in the darkness for me, the idea that things are going to be all right. There are a couple of different aspects to this. One is I can go and find, and have gone and found my own light in the darkness. Who are the people on my team who have light even when I can't see in the dark? They have different insights. They have different vision. They have different perspective. Um, I've reached out to you when I couldn't see how I could get things to be okay. You were a light in my leadership darkness. We tend to think, I think, and I experienced that we have to go this alone. And
Well,
then,
I will actually tell you that what you're talking about is the second one, is the relationship. The light in the darkness in my mind's eye is about vision, is about
mm,
seeing, okay, there is a way to be that's over there
mm,
that is different from it is how it is here. And this is not only better, it's possible.
yeah, right. It is possible that, it reminds me of a quote attributed to Denzel Washington. I don't know if it's actually his, and I'm probably going to butcher it. It says, in essence, the confidence of the bird. The bird is not confident in the branch. The bird is confident in its own wings.
Yes. Yes.
Uh, and that is for me a light in the darkness where,
Okay.
like, all of this might go to shit. All this stuff that I'm building might totally crumble,
Sure.
and that is gonna suck. And
Yes.
also, I'm gonna be okay
Yes. Yes.
in any event.
I mean, and we talked about this before. It doesn't even matter if it's true or not. It doesn't even matter, honestly. Like, I mean, how much better are your results when you behave as if?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And so what ends up happening is that you end up being okay. I mean, w- I don't know if this applies to you, but this is like my eighth or ninth iteration of myself
Mm.
in 30 years of working.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't counted. There's more than one iteration for sure.
Because, I could have just been an engineer and hung out and just designed stuff.
Yeah.
But no,
Right.
I was in real estate, I was in insurance, I had a little bit of an exercise in starting a little security firm at one point. Um, I did finance, we owned stores. There was an apartment complex at one point that we owned and operated. And then I was a fractional CFO and all these other things. And what has happened is a natural progression from the opportunities that gave themselves up to make other things happen. And
Mm.
whether it was a transition through failure or a transition through success, it was still a transition. And so stuff ended and we still had to keep going. And if you weren't careful, it would be easy to assess that everything was falling apart. And if you were careful, it would be easy to assess that it's all okay. And all of
Yeah.
it is still true. Please continue. You were going on to your second point.
Yeah. Well, the second point, the relationship, you're not alone. You're distinct but not different. I think that's such a valuable distinction. The distinction between being distinct and not different. I remember coaching someone many years ago who was really, something happened. Something went terribly wrong. I don't remember the circumstances. And he was just really down on himself. And I remember, asking him, what would you say to, and I named some mutual friend of ours, if he was going through this same situation, would you permit him to call himself a worthless asshole like you're calling yourself? He was like, no, and he had some more to say. And I said, well, what makes you so special? And there is something really valuable about recognizing our own distinctness. And yes, we are our own person. And yes, our circumstances are different from other people's. And yet, there are principles that apply.
Yeah. Not that, not that different.
What's that?
Not that different.
Yeah, not that different. That's one of the beautiful things about principles is that even as the details shift and turn, the universe still follows certain laws.
Yeah. Well, and where that benefits us in this example, to your point, is life is so much more bearable when you have a friend.
Mm.
I mean, I can't tell you. Well, I mean, even the reason this podcast is happening, right, is because I liked you more than most human beings I could stand. You tolerated my nonsense, and as a result, I never met someone whose leadership ethos
Mm.
so echoed my own. Like you were saying things that I had been arguing about for years to myself and no one that would listen. And so it was so validating
Mm.
to have you say things like, there is no control, there is only influence.
Mm.
To have you say things like, it is possible to create an environment in which people operate from a place of results and dignity. You don't
Mm.
have to coddle folks unnecessarily. At the same time, there it doesn't need to be power struggles and control and the diminishment of another person's worth and value.
Mm. I love you.
And
You are wonderful. And,
yes,
you are multi-talented.
and
And
get your crap done.
out of this position that you are sitting in must come these results.
Yes, all of that gets to be
Yeah.
true. And so it felt so good that another human being on this path was willing to express themselves and be human and be, so you gave me permission
Mm.
to be the leader I felt my organization needed me to be.
Mm.
You gave me permission to show up and double down on the idea that I could bring the word empathy and compassion into my strategic meetings about how we're going to handle customers.
That really touches me, and it reminds me of conversations that I've been having recently with a owner of a company, one of our clients, and his team has come to view him as greedy and money centered. And they think he's pocketing an awful lot of cash, which he's not. Their profits are not what they need to be, and even when they are, he's reinvesting in the company. And by the way, it's clear as soon as you walk in the door that company is getting the lion's share of the profit. He talks all the time about the revenue and the sale and the profit and the this and the that. And it's not really what he cares about. And the more I talk to him, the more I recognize that it's not really what he cares about. In his heart of hearts, he believes that the revenue and the profit are a byproduct of serving their customer and their community well. And one of the things that we are doing with him, with his leaders, with his team in general, is making this profound shift from talking about the money, though we know that it is a measure of the company's success to a certain degree.
Sure.
It's not the focus of the company's success. And so they are talking more and more about the mission, about the service that they provide to the customer, about the safety that they ensure for the customer and for the community. And they talk more and more about how the behaviors that they need their people to be engaged in. No, less and less, because that's how we get the revenue. And more about how, because that's how we serve the customer. If we leave without the customer even knowing we could have done X and Y for them, then that's been a dereliction of our duty to serve.
Sure.
They get to choose whether they want X or Y or neither. And it's incumbent upon us to say, these things are available to you because you know us.
Yeah. And that sounds exactly like how sales gets to be at its most effective.
You're right. Most of it's most effective and it's most clean.
Well, so you say that and you just sparked a thought. So I have a director of sales that I am so grateful is on my team. Because one of the things I love about her is she will say to you, or say to me, I'm not in sales, I'm in service. And we have struggled to preserve our sales culture ever since she came online. She's been with me now going on 8 years. 8 years this month. I think we start year 8 this month. And we have preserved our sales ethos of never creating a pressure situation. And some years it was very hard to do that because we just weren't hitting the results that the business needed, but it did not matter because people can smell need. And so we kept on showing up from a place of support and help. And if a customer needed a scope to be well designed that was within a certain price range and we could pull it off and that was the right answer for the customer, even though it would be just as easy to sell them something that was 3 times as expensive, we were very clear. If this thing doesn't serve you and we're not creating the value we need to, we don't want to be in the equation, period. And just drawing that line, I can't tell you how gratifying it is to have a sales prospect say to you, finally, I feel like I'm not being hustled. I have somebody that's telling me the truth. And that's before they bought from us. It's because that consultative, here are the options, you choose, I have no dog in the fight. Spend nothing, spend whatever it is you want. I don't care. I just want you to be informed with the best choices that you can make. And in a way, having that disposition epitomizes what's possible in relationship with somebody professionally engaged.
Yeah.
You okay?
Yep. I just got somebody knocking at the door, but okay. I'm doing something.
All right. The last one is creativity. You want to explore that one?
Yeah. So the opportunity to reinvent yourself through the experience of this, to reimagine the future. And in some ways that kind of loops back to what you're talking about, the reimagining of the future as this, things could be, just a little down the road, things could be this way. Your vision could exist.
And who are you? And who are you operating in that vision? That's the distinction between the light and the dark versus the reinvention. It's not about it being different and better. It's about you being in that space, and who are you showing up as, and how can you, customer, friend, prospect, neighbor, parishioner, be engaged. This is a human connection
Right.
experience. This is not about just selling. This is about having the person that's in front of you imagine themselves as being them, the best version of what's possible for themselves.
And this is where, you know, I come to commitment. And there's something magical in commitment. And Goethe's got some big quote about, there's magic in just stepping out onto the path. I don't remember exactly how the quote goes. I do remember as a teacher of acting in college, the first thing that I did, I asked everybody, how many of you have had acting classes in high school? And a bunch of hands went up. And how many of you have not had acting classes in high school? This is your first time ever taking an acting class. And a bunch of hands would go up. And I'd say, you folks are ahead.
Okay.
Because the other folks have got a lot to unlearn. The first thing that we do after that is I teach them this game that I invented. It's called Tail. And it's essentially hide and go seek, except that everybody's hiding and seeking at the exact same time. So if you and I are playing, we're out in public, by the way. In college, we're out on the quad where there are tons of people. And I'm looking for you. And if I see you, I take out my notebook and I take notes about what you're doing. And I try to stay invisible to you and invisible to everybody else who might be at any angle from me. So I'm logging tail time on you while I'm hoping to avoid getting tail time logged on me.
Okay.
And people get into it. And it is a kind of an animal experience. And I remember seeing some of the students, even students who were too self-conscious to stick out their tongue in class, right? It was like, was too much to do in front of other people. I was watching this one guy who was like that, and he was, kind of crouched down and watching somebody had taken notes. And there's a security guard right over here, and he's very clearly aware of the security guard, so he's trying not to be suspicious. And he's taking notes, and he sees somebody come around the corner, and he did a dive roll over a hedge without even thinking about it. That's acting, right? It's behaving. I forget, Sanford Meisner, I'm pointing back there. I know there's a book on my shelf somewhere over there. Sanford Meisner said something like, acting is behaving naturally in imaginary circumstances. And he was so committed to the game. He was so committed to logging tail time while not being logged that his self-consciousness took a backseat to that level of purpose. And he learned something that day that he carried forward into our scene work later about what he's capable of, even while other people are watching.
Well, and so that's another big tenet in this Subtle Art of Not Giving an F book that I'm sharing with you. One of the huge points he makes is being able to push through on your commitments and your activities, regardless of what could lead to self-consciousness. A huge part of this, transcending what other people think and what other people who don't care about you would be judging you on.
Right.
And what he talks about is paring down the things that would cause you to hesitate or stutter, and focus in on the things that cause you to move the needle, the things that you get to protect, the things that you get to sacrifice for and feel pain for.
And that's, you're describing to me freedom, right? And talk about a reinventing yourself or a reimagining who you could be in the future. That level or that increasing level of freedom, that's that, and there's no, not only did diving over that hedge hurt him physically.
Sure.
When we got back to the classroom and I said what I said, he was like, yeah, well, once I'd done it, I was really embarrassed. And also, like, how cool that I did that. That was a baller move. that, there's pain in that, and yet he's also experiencing the joy of having transcended a place that he had thought was inaccessible to him.
And I think that's why I lift. I lift and my knees don't feel good and my body sometimes breaks down, but you just described it, is what's possible and how can you do things that you didn't even think possible? And what does that cost in the right now? Just right now. Just this minute right here. What does that actually cost? It's not some grand sacrifice. It's just a moment of sustained discomfort.
Yeah. All right.
See where that goes. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you too. And I appreciate this conversation. And that feels like a really good place to wrap. All
right. Sounds good.
Great talking with you. Thank you for joining us today for Leadership Uncertain. It's been a fun one.